The crystal spires of Xerion Prime no longer gleamed with confidence. In the Galactic Council chambers, the 12 species that had ruled known space for millennia sat in stunned silence. Holographic displays showed the aftermath of what historians would later call the 30-minute war. 12,000 Council warships reduced to scattered debris. The greatest military force in galactic history destroyed by 3,000 human vessels that seemed to exist partially outside reality itself. Hegemon Vorthak's massive form slumped in his chair. His gray skin had turned almost white with shock. "How many survivors?" Ambassador Zelkith's claws trembled as he read the reports. 1,800 ships escaped. Most are heavily damaged. Total casualties. He paused, unable to believe the numbers. Over 2 million beings. High Priestess Melvana's golden skin flickered with grief. 2 million souls lost to primitives, who shouldn't even understand space travel. Counselor Krex's electronic voice crackled with static. "Our sensors still cannot properly track their vessels. They appear to phase in and out of normal space-time at will." The chamber's main screen activated without warning. Admiral Rodriguez appeared, but he was no longer aboard a single ship. Behind him stretched a vast chamber filled with humans working at stations covered in impossible technology. "Council members," Rodriguez said formally, "I am broadcasting from humanity's primary command vessel. We have matters to discuss." Vorthak leaned forward, his voice carrying a mixture of anger and fear. "You have committed acts of war against 12 galactic civilizations. Surrender now, and we may show mercy." Rodriguez's expression didn't change. "Hegemon Vorthak, 6 months ago you classified humanity as non-sentient biological contamination. You scheduled our world for cleansing. You refused every attempt at peaceful communication. We did not know you were truly intelligent," Zelkith interjected. "You didn't want to know," Rodriguez replied. "You saw our primitive technology and decided we were not worth considering. That was your first mistake." Melvana spoke carefully. "What were our other mistakes?" Rodriguez gestured to someone off-screen. The display changed to show a tactical map of the galaxy. Red dots representing human ships were scattered across vast distances. "Your second mistake was giving us time to prepare. Your third mistake was underestimating what desperation can accomplish, but your biggest mistake was assuming that technological advancement equals intelligence." The map zoomed in to show human fleets positioned near several major galactic worlds. Not attacking, just present. A clear demonstration of capability. "Impossible," Krex's electronic voice stated. "Our fastest ships would need months to reach those positions. You accomplished it in hours." "We don't use your technological principles," Rodriguez explained. "Human consciousness evolved differently than yours. Our minds naturally process quantum uncertainty in ways your computers require millennia to calculate." Dr. Sarah Chen appeared beside Rodriguez on the screen. She looked tired but determined. "Council members, we've studied your history and your species' development. You all evolved on stable worlds with predictable environments. Your technological advancement was gradual, methodical, built on consensus and careful testing." Vorthak rumbled angrily. "Civilization requires order and patience." "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "But survival requires adaptation. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every few thousand years. Ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts. We learned to innovate fast or die." Rodriguez took over the explanation. "While your species spent millennia perfecting technologies, humans learned to find solutions in impossible circumstances. When you threatened our extinction, you activated millions of years of evolutionary programming." The display changed again, showing human colonies already established on previously unknown worlds. "These systems were considered uninhabitable by Council standards," Rodriguez continued. "Humans are already building cities there. We don't need perfect conditions. We adapt." Zelkith's voice cracked with realization. "You're not just defending your world, you're expanding." "Exploration and colonization are human instincts," Sarah said. "We've already made contact with 17 species that the Council classified as too primitive for membership. Turns out they're quite intelligent once someone actually tries to communicate with them." The implications hit the Council members like physical blows. Humanity wasn't just threatening their military supremacy. They were offering an alternative to the entire galactic order. "What do you want from us?" Melvana asked quietly. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "We want you to understand that intelligence comes in many forms. Technological advancement isn't the only measure of a species' worth. And most importantly, we want you to understand that cooperation works better than domination." The screen split to show multiple human ambassadors speaking with various alien species. Some were council members' subject races who had never been considered for full membership. The old galactic order was based on technological hierarchy. Rodriguez continued. Advanced species dominated primitive ones, but advancement isn't just about having better weapons. It's about solving problems, adapting to challenges, and growing beyond your original limitations. Vorthak finally spoke, his voice subdued. "Are you demanding our surrender?" Rodriguez shook his head. "We're offering you membership in something better. A galactic federation based on merit, not age, on innovation, not tradition, where species are valued for their unique contributions, not their military power." "And if we refuse?" Krex asked. Rodriguez's smile was cold. "Then you'll discover that humans are very good at making things irrelevant. We've already established trade agreements with 43 systems that were never part of your economic network. We've shared defensive technologies with species you considered too primitive to threaten you," Sarah added. "In 6 months, humanity went from chemical rockets to quantum displacement drives. In another 6 months, who knows what we'll accomplish? The question is whether you want to be part of that progress or left behind by it." The council members looked at each other with dawning understanding. Humanity wasn't destroying the galactic order through conquest. They were making it obsolete. Through innovation. "What exactly are you proposing?" Melvana asked. "A new federation," Rodriguez explained. "One where species contribute according to their abilities, not their technology levels. Humans excel at rapid innovation and problem-solving. The Vorthak Empire has unmatched industrial capacity. The Androsi Collective has artistic and cultural achievements beyond anything we've imagined." The display showed human and alien engineers working together on projects that seemed impossible even by council standards. "Every species has evolved unique strengths," Sarah continued. "Instead of ranking them hierarchically, we combine them. The result is technological and social advancement that none of us could achieve alone." Zelkith studied the data streaming across his personal display. "These innovation rates, if accurate, we could advance our technology by millennia within decades." "That's what cooperation accomplishes," Rodriguez said. "Instead of competing for resources, we share knowledge. Instead of conquering worlds, we transform them. Instead of maintaining order through force, we achieve stability through mutual benefit." Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "And if we disagree with your methods?" Rodriguez's expression grew serious. "Then you're free to continue governing your territory exactly as you always have. But you'll do it without threatening species that you consider primitive. Because now those species have protection. Human warships briefly phased into visibility around Zerion Prime itself. Dozens of them, each one capable of devastating the planet before vanishing again. The message was clear. The age of galactic bullying was over. "We're not conquerors," Rodriguez said as the human ships disappeared. "We're protectors. Any species that wants to advance, explore, and grow will find willing partners in humanity. Any species that wants to dominate others will find us standing in their way." The transmission ended, leaving the council members alone with their thoughts and the wreckage of their assumptions. Melvana spoke first. "They could have destroyed us completely. Instead, they're offering partnership." "Partnership with primitives," Vorthak grumbled. But his heart wasn't in the complaint. Zelkith was studying data reports from across the galaxy. "Hegemon, these humans have already contacted over 100 species. They're offering technology, defense agreements, and trade partnerships. In weeks, they've assembled an alliance that rivals our entire council." Krex's electronic voice was thoughtful. "Perhaps the question isn't whether they're primitive. Perhaps the question is whether we've become too advanced for our own good." 6 months later, the crystal spires of Zerion Prime hosted a very different kind of gathering. Representatives from over 200 species filled chambers that had once held only 12. The Galactic Council had become the Galactic Federation, and the changes were remarkable. human innovation centers worked alongside alien research facilities. Species that had never been considered for membership now contributed unique perspectives to galactic challenges. Worlds that had been marked for resource extraction became thriving colonies where multiple species lived and worked together. Elena Vasquez stared out the viewport of the transport ship as they approached the massive space station. Concordia was bigger than any city on Earth. The structure stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, its surface covered, with docking bays, communication arrays, and the flags of nearly 1,000 different worlds. "First time seeing it?" asked Captain Morrison, the ship's commander. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. "Yes," Elena replied. "I've seen pictures, but this is different." "It always is. Makes you feel small, doesn't it?" Elena nodded. She was Earth's lead ambassador, chosen for this mission because of her skills in negotiation and her ability to stay calm under pressure. But looking at Concordia, she wondered if those skills would be enough. The message had arrived 6 months ago. The Galactic Confederation demanded that humanity appear before their highest court to answer charges of territorial violations and illegal expansion. The tone of the message was not friendly. It read more like a parent calling a child to punishment than one government speaking to another. "Docking in 5 minutes," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "Remember, everyone stays professional. We're representing all of humanity today." Elena's team consisted of 12 people: lawyers, diplomats, military advisors, and scientists. Each had been chosen for their expertise and their ability to work under pressure. They had spent months preparing for this moment, studying galactic law and precedent. But Elena knew that knowledge might not be enough. The docking process was smooth. As soon as they were secured, alien officials boarded their ship. The first was a tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and completely black. "I am Coordinator Vex of the Zephyrian Authority," it said in perfect English. "You will follow me to the processing center." Elena noticed that Vex did not introduce itself as a diplomat or ambassador, just a coordinator. The message was clear. Humans were not being treated as equals here. They were led through corridors that seemed designed to impress and intimidate. The ceilings were impossibly high, covered with holographic displays showing the symbols of member worlds. Aliens of every description moved through the passages, some walking, others floating, a few that seemed to flow like liquid. Elena tried to maintain her composure, but she could feel the stares. Most aliens looked at the humans with curiosity, like people might look at a new animal at a zoo. Some showed clear disdain, their expressions suggesting they smelled something unpleasant. The processing center was a large room with dozens of stations. Each human was assigned to a different booth for what was called cultural orientation and legal briefing. Elena found herself facing a creature that looked like a cross between an octopus and a tree. "I am Legal Advisor Quelm," it said through a translation device. "I will explain the charges against your species and the legal process you will face." Elena listened as Quelm read from a document that seemed to go on forever. The charges were serious. Humanity was accused of establishing colonies in disputed space without proper authorization. They were charged with trading directly with non-Confederation worlds, which violated economic protocols. Most seriously, they were accused of aggressive territorial expansion in violation of established galactic law. "These are serious charges," Quelm continued. "The penalty for such violations can include forced relocation of all human colonies, payment of massive reparations, and placement under Confederation oversight for a period of no less than 500 years. "I see," Elena said carefully. "And what evidence will be presented against us?" Quelm's tentacles waved in what might have been amusement. "Evidence? Child, this is not a trial in the primitive sense your species might understand. This is a formal hearing where the Confederation Council will determine the appropriate response to your species' actions. Your role is to listen and accept the judgment." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying we don't get to present a defense?" "You may make a statement if the Council chooses to hear it," Quelm replied. "But understand that the facts are not in dispute. Your colonies exist in space claimed by Confederation members. Your traders have operated outside approved channels. These things are documented." After the briefing, Elena was reunited with her team. They were assigned quarters in what was clearly a lower status section of the station. The rooms were small, and the gravity was set slightly higher than Earth normal, making everyone feel tired and sluggish. "This isn't a trial," Elena told her team during their first meeting. "It's a sentencing hearing. They've already decided we're guilty." Dr. Sarah Chen, their expert on galactic law, nodded grimly. "I've been reviewing the cases of other species that went through this process. The pattern is always the same. Young civilizations are accused of violations, forced to accept punitive terms, and then become dependent on the Confederation for everything." "What kind of terms?" asked Commander Rodriguez, their military advisor. "Complete economic integration, meaning all trade goes through Confederation channels. Territorial restrictions that limit expansion to pre-approved areas, and oversight committees that can veto any major decision a species tries to make." Elena studied the data Dr. Chen had compiled. Every species that had gone through this process had ended up as what amounted to a tributary state. They were allowed to exist, but not to truly govern themselves. "There's something else," Dr. Chen continued. "I've been analyzing the territorial claims that we supposedly violated. Most of them are for empty space that hasn't been visited by the claimant species in centuries. Some of the claims overlap, meaning multiple species claim the same territory. And in several cases, the claimed space includes star systems that were uninhabited when we arrived." "So they're claiming empty space just to keep us from using it?" Elena asked. "It appears so. And the trade violations are even more interesting. We're accused of giving unfair deals to species outside the Confederation. But when I look at what we actually offered, it's just standard trade agreements. Fair. Prices, mutual benefits, technology sharing." Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. "So we're in trouble for being fair?" "That's exactly what it looks like," Dr. Chen replied. "The Confederation system depends on keeping younger species weak and dependent. We're disrupting that by treating our trading partners as equals." Elena spent the rest of the evening reviewing their options. They could try to negotiate, but it was clear the outcome was predetermined. They could accept the terms and hope for the best, but that would mean surrendering human independence forever. Or they could take a third option, one that no species had ever tried before. The next morning, they were escorted to the council chamber. The room was enormous, with seating for thousands of representatives. At the center was a raised platform, where the accused species was expected to stand. Elena looked up at the tiers of alien faces looking down at them and realized this was designed to make her feel small and powerless. The charges were read again, this time by a council member whose species Elena didn't recognize. The creature had crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, and its voice echoed strangely in the chamber. "The human species stands accused of territorial violations, economic disruption, and failure to respect established galactic order," it announced. "How do you answer these charges?" Elena stepped forward. This was the moment she had been preparing for, but now that it was here, she felt the weight of her entire species' future on her shoulders. Every human alive and all those yet to be born would be affected by what happened in this room. "Honored Council," she began. "Humanity rejects the premise of these charges and the authority of this court to judge actions taken in the defense of our species' sovereignty." A wave of shocked whispers ran through the chamber. No one had ever challenged the council's authority before. The crystalline being's light patterns shifted to what Elena guessed was anger. "You will explain this statement." Elena took a deep breath. This was it. There was no going back now. Elena looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at her. The council chamber had gone completely silent after her challenge to their authority. She could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. "Honored Council," she continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We have spent months studying your laws, your precedents, and your procedures. What we have found is not a system of justice, but a system of control." The crystalline being who had read the charges began to glow brighter. "You dare to question galactic law that has maintained peace for 50,000 years? I question a system that calls empty space disputed territory simply because someone put a flag on a star chart," Elena replied. "I question economic laws that punish fair trade and reward exploitation. and I question the peace that comes from keeping entire civilizations in permanent subjugation. Dr. Chen stepped forward with a tablet containing their research. We have documented evidence of how this system really works, she announced. Over the past 3 days, we have analyzed every territorial claim that supposedly validates the charges against humanity. The council members began to murmur among themselves. This was clearly not how these proceedings usually went. Elena nodded to Dr. Chen, who activated a holographic display visible to the entire chamber. The Antares sector, claimed by the Zephyrian Authority for the past 800 years. Our colonies there were labeled as illegal settlements, but Zephyrian records show no visit to that sector in over 4 centuries. The display changed to show another star system, the Kepler Nebula region, claimed by 3 different Confederation members. All 3 claim exclusive rights to the same space. Human traders operating there are charged with violating territorial sovereignty. But whose sovereignty? The claims contradict each other. A new image appeared, showing a complex web of trade routes. And then there are the economic charges. Humanity is accused of disrupting established trade networks by offering unfair deals to non-Confederation species. The evidence shows we offered standard exchange rates, technology sharing agreements, and mutual defense pacts, the same terms offered to Confederation members. Elena took over the presentation. The difference is that we treated these species as equals instead of vassals. We shared technology instead of hoarding it. We offered partnership instead of dependency. A voice boomed from the upper tiers. Elena looked up to see a massive creature that looked like it was made of flowing gas, held together by some kind of energy field. The Ethereal Collective has observed galactic politics for 30,000 years, it said in a voice like wind, through caves. Young species always believe they can improve upon established systems. They always fail. With respect, Elena replied. How would you know? According to our research, no young species has ever been allowed to try. Every civilization that reaches this chamber leaves as a client state of the Confederation. She gestured to her team, and Commander Rodriguez stepped forward. He was a career military officer who had served in Earth's defense forces for 20 years. His presence alone seemed to make some of the council members nervous. We have also studied the military aspects of Confederation membership, Rodriguez said. Species that join are required to integrate their defense forces with Confederation command structure. They lose the ability to defend themselves independently. Their technology development is regulated. Their fleet movements are monitored and controlled. The crystalline council leaders' light patterns were now flashing rapidly. These requirements ensure galactic peace and prevent conflicts between member species. They ensure that member species cannot resist Confederation control, Elena corrected. And they explain why this system has lasted so long, not because it's just, but because it's effective at maintaining power. The chamber erupted in noise as hundreds of council members began speaking at once. Some seemed angry, others appeared confused, and a few looked thoughtful. Elena noticed that the representatives from some of the newer Confederation members were paying very close attention to the human presentation, the crystalline being raised one of its arms, and the chamber fell silent. Even if your accusations had merit, which they do not, this council has the authority to determine the terms under which species may exist in civilized space. That authority derives from our superior experience and our commitment to maintaining order. Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Superior experience in what? Stagnation? Your own records show that most Confederation technologies haven't advanced significantly in millennia. Your social structures are rigid. Your economic systems prioritize control over growth. And your idea of maintaining order is to prevent anyone from trying anything new. She paused and looked around the chamber. Humanity has been in space for less than 3 centuries. In that time, we have developed faster-than-light travel, advanced artificial intelligence, and energy systems that your best scientists said were impossible. We did this not despite being young, but because of it. Dr. Chen activated a new display showing technological advancement charts. Innovation requires risk-taking, experimentation, and the freedom to fail. The Confederation system eliminates all of these factors in the name of stability. Stability is not stagnation, the gas being countered. Our system has prevented wars that could have destroyed entire species. Your system has prevented growth that could have elevated entire species, Elena replied. And it has created a situation where a few ancient civilizations control the destiny of everyone else. The debate continued for hours. The humans presented evidence of economic manipulation, territorial control schemes, and technological suppression. The council members responded with arguments about tradition, stability, and the wisdom of age. Finally, the crystalline being called for a recess. The council would deliberate and return with their judgment. Elena and her team were escorted back to their quarters. That went better than expected, Dr. Chen said once they were alone. Did it? Elena asked. We've essentially accused them of running a galactic protection racket. I don't think they're going to respond well to that. Commander Rodriguez was studying intelligence reports on his tablet. There's something else to consider. Our ship's sensors have been monitoring activity around the station. There are a lot more military vessels here than usual. How many more? Elena asked. At least 50 additional warships have arrived since we got here, all from the older, more powerful Confederation members. Elena felt a chill. They're not planning to negotiate, they're planning to make an example of us. The next morning, they were summoned back to the council chamber. The atmosphere was different now, colder, more formal. Elena noticed that many of the smaller species representatives were absent. The crystalline being stood to deliver the judgment. Its light patterns were now a steady, angry red. The council has considered the arguments presented by the human delegation. We find them to be without merit and based on a fundamental misunderstanding of galactic civilization. Elena listened as the being continued. Humanity is hereby found guilty of all charges. The penalty is as follows. All human colonies beyond the Sol system are to be evacuated within 1 standard galactic year. All human vessels are to be retrofitted with Confederation monitoring systems. All human trade agreements with non-Confederation species are to be terminated immediately. The list went on. Reparations that would bankrupt Earth. Oversight committees, with veto power over human government decisions. Mandatory technology sharing that would strip away every advantage humanity had developed. Furthermore, the being continued, to ensure compliance, Confederation forces will establish monitoring stations in the Sol system. Any attempt to violate these terms will result in military intervention. Elena stood up slowly. The chamber was completely quiet, waiting for her response. Every human in the galaxy was depending on what she said next. She looked up at the crystalline being and smiled. Then humanity formally withdraws from these proceedings and rejects the authority of this court. The chamber exploded in chaos. Alarms began to sound. Elena gathered her materials and turned to her team. Time to go home, she said calmly. We have some calls to make. 2 weeks after humanity's withdrawal from Confederation space, intelligence reports began reaching the council chamber that changed everything the galaxy thought they knew about the young species from Earth. Coordinator Vex stood before the emergency assembly, his 4 arms gesturing at holographic displays that showed intelligence data from across the galaxy. The blue-skinned Zephyrian's usual confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear. Honored Council, he began, our intelligence networks have compiled a preliminary assessment of human capabilities. The results are disturbing. The first display showed technical specifications for human ships. What we believed to be cargo vessels were actually military craft with advanced stealth capabilities. Their weapons systems use technology we don't fully understand, and their shields are more powerful than anything in our fleets. A murmur ran through the chamber. The crystalline council leader leaned forward, its light patterns flickering with concern. How advanced are we talking about? Their fastest ships can achieve hyperspace velocities 50% greater than our best military vessels, Vex continued. Their weapons appear to use some form of controlled fusion reaction that produces energy yields comparable to our capital ship armaments, but in fighter-sized platforms. The next display showed manufacturing data. More concerning is their industrial capacity. Our analysts estimate that humanity has been operating fabrication facilities capable of producing advanced starships at a rate we previously thought impossible for a species of their size. Dr. Quelm, the octopus-like legal advisor, spoke from her position in the upper tier. How could our surveillance networks have missed this level of development? Vex's expression darkened. Because they didn't miss it. They were fed false information. Every monitoring station we placed in human space was actually being used to provide us with carefully constructed intelligence designed to make humans appear less capable than they actually are. The chamber fell silent. For centuries, the Confederation's power had been built on superior intelligence gathering. The idea that a young species had fooled their entire surveillance network was almost unthinkable. "There's more," Vex continued. "Analysis of human colony evacuation procedures reveals that their settlements were designed from the beginning to be rapidly relocatable. These weren't permanent colonies in the traditional sense. They were forward operating bases with civilian populations." Admiral Thek of the Draconian Fleet stood up, her reptilian features twisted with anger. "Are you suggesting that humanity has been preparing for military conflict from the moment they entered galactic space?" "I'm suggesting that humanity has been preparing for independence from the moment they encountered us," Vex replied. "Every trade agreement, every diplomatic contact, every technology exchange was designed to gather intelligence while concealing their true capabilities." The gas being known as the ethereal observer made a sound like wind through metal pipes. "In 30,000 years of observation, we have never encountered a species capable of such long-term strategic thinking. Most young civilizations operate on timescales of decades. This suggests planning over centuries." The displays changed to show trade route analysis. "Human merchants weren't just conducting business," Vex explained. "They were mapping our entire economic system, identifying critical supply lines, and establishing relationships with species that felt oppressed by Confederation policies." "How many species?" asked the crystalline leader. "At last count, 147 non-Confederation worlds have established direct communication with human representatives. 32 Confederation member species have filed formal complaints about their membership terms in the past 2 weeks." The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. This was more than just one species leaving. It was the beginning of a systematic challenge to the entire Confederation structure. Admiral Thek slammed her fist on her speaking platform. "This is clearly a planned rebellion. We should mobilize the full fleet and crush this human insurgency before it spreads further." "With what fleet?" asked a voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Admiral Korath of the Centauri Defense Force. The elderly Zephyrian commander was known for his tactical expertise and had never been wrong about military assessments. "Explain," the crystalline leader demanded. Korath activated his own display, showing fleet deployment charts. "Our military assets are spread across 800 systems, maintaining order among member species. We have patrol fleets, but no concentrated strike force large enough to guarantee victory against an opponent of unknown capabilities." He paused and looked around the chamber. "More importantly, our member species are beginning to question whether they should support military action against humans. The Rigelians have already withdrawn their ships from joint operations. The Proxima Alliance is demanding a full review of our articles of cooperation before they commit any forces." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. The Confederation fleet had always depended on contributions from member species. If those contributions stopped coming, their military advantage would disappear almost overnight. "There's something else," Korath continued. "Human intelligence networks are better than ours. They knew about this emergency session before some of our own council members did. They've been monitoring our communications for an unknown period." Vex nodded grimly. "We've detected sophisticated listening posts throughout Confederation space. When humans evacuated, they left behind communication networks that we can't shut down or trace. They're hearing everything we say." The ethereal observer made a sound like a sigh. "Then they know we're discussing military action." "They know more than that," Korath replied. 3 hours ago, human representatives broadcast a message to every species in the galaxy. They announced the formation of what they're calling the Free Systems Alliance. Any species that wants to join can participate as an equal partner. No tribute, no oversight committees, no territorial restrictions. The crystalline leader's light patterns shifted to an angry red. "And how many species have responded?" 67 have sent delegations to the Human Coordination Center in the Neutral Zone, Korath answered. 12 have already signed preliminary agreements. Dr. Quelm spoke up from her platform. "This is unprecedented. No alternative to Confederation membership has ever been offered. Most species don't even know such a thing is possible." "It wasn't possible until now," Vex replied. "Humans are offering something we never could, membership in an alliance without giving up sovereignty. They're sharing technology freely, offering mutual defense agreements, and establishing trade relationships based on equality rather than hierarchy. Admiral Thek stood again, her anger now directed at the Council itself. So what are you all suggesting? That we negotiate with rebels? That we treat this human alliance as legitimate? I'm suggesting that we consider the possibility that our system is being rejected because it's no longer the best option available, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Lith of the Rigelian Republic. The small, gray-skinned being rarely spoke in council sessions, but when he did, others listened. His species had been one of the most loyal Confederation members for over 1,000 years. With respect to this council, Lith continued, the Rigelian government has spent the past 2 weeks reviewing our membership benefits versus our obligations. The analysis is not favorable to continued Confederation membership. The chamber fell silent again. If the Rigelians, one of their most stable members, were considering withdrawal, then the situation was far worse than anyone had realized. What are you saying? The crystalline leader asked. I'm saying that humanity has offered us a better deal than the Confederation ever has, Lith replied simply. Free technology sharing, equal representation in alliance decisions, mutual defense without mandatory military contributions, and trade agreements that benefit both parties instead of enriching a few core species. He paused and looked around the chamber. The Rigelian Republic will be joining the Free Systems Alliance at the end of this month. We are formally withdrawing from the Galactic Confederation. The announcement hit like a bomb. Lith's species represented one of the largest and most advanced non-core members of the Confederation. Their withdrawal would encourage others to follow. Admiral Thek was shaking with rage. This is exactly what the humans wanted. They're destroying 50,000 years of galactic civilization. No, said the ethereal observer quietly. They're offering something better, and we're discovering that many species prefer partnership to subjugation. The crystalline leader dimmed its light patterns until it was barely glowing. For the first time in its long existence, it was beginning to understand that the Confederation might not survive this challenge. What do our intelligence services estimate human military capabilities to be? It asked, finally. Vex consulted his data tablets. Unknown, but extensive. They've been building their forces for decades while convincing us they were peaceful traders. Conservative estimates suggest they could field a fleet of several thousand advanced combat vessels within weeks of mobilization. And how many ships could we mobilize against them? The first shot fired in what historians would later call the War of Independence happened in the Kepler Nebula when Admiral Sek of the Confederation's Third Fleet decided to send a message to the rebellious humans. All ships, battle formation. Admiral Sek commanded from the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Inevitable Justice. Around him, 1,200 Confederation vessels moved into the standard attack pattern that had intimidated countless species over the millennia. They were facing 47 human ships that had been protecting a convoy of refugee vessels carrying evacuated colonists to Free Systems Alliance territory. The odds seemed overwhelming in the Confederation's favor. Admiral Sek opened a communication channel to the human fleet. This is Admiral Sek of the Galactic Confederation Fleet. You are in violation of territorial sovereignty and harboring fugitive populations. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. The response came from Captain Elena Rodriguez, the same woman who had commanded the disguised escort carrier during the withdrawal. She was now aboard the human battleship Defiant, leading what appeared to be a hopelessly outmatched fleet. Admiral Sek, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Free Systems Alliance. We are escorting civilian refugees through neutral space. We will not surrender, and we will not allow you to harm innocent people. Sek's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. Captain, you are outnumbered 25-1. Your defiance is admirable but pointless. Admiral? Elena replied calmly. You're operating under outdated intelligence. We're not the same species you thought you knew. What happened next changed. Galactic warfare forever. The human ships suddenly split into small groups, moving with coordination that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, they moved like a pack of wolves surrounding prey. The Confederation fleet opened fire with massive energy weapons designed to destroy capital ships. The humans did something unprecedented. They dodged. Ships weighing thousands of tons moved like fighters, using thrust vectoring and inertial dampening systems that shouldn't have existed. "How are they moving like that?" demanded Sex Tactical. "Officer? Unknown, sir. Their acceleration curves are beyond anything in our databases, but the humans weren't just running. Their return fire was devastatingly accurate. Where Confederation weapons were designed for overwhelming firepower, human weapons were designed for precision. They targeted specific systems, engines, weapons, life support, with surgical accuracy. The Defiant engaged 3 Confederation heavy cruisers simultaneously. Instead of trying to outgun them, it outthought them. The human ship would fire at one target while maneuvering to use another as cover, then switch targets before the enemy could adapt. Captain Rodriguez watched her tactical display as her ship's artificial intelligence analyzed enemy patterns. "Target the lead cruiser's shield generators. Fire when ready." The Defiant's main guns fired a concentrated burst that punched through the cruiser's shields and disabled its primary systems without destroying the ship. The crew would survive, but the vessel was out of the fight. This pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships fought with a combination of advanced technology and tactical flexibility that the Confederation fleet couldn't match. Where alien commanders followed established doctrines, human captains improvised and adapted in real time. Admiral Sec watched in growing horror as his overwhelming numerical advantage began to disappear. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human." "Flagship!" 800 ships turned their weapons on the Defiant. Elena Rodriguez responded by doing something that violated every rule of space combat. She flew her battleship directly into the enemy formation. The Defiant moved through the Confederation fleet like a shark through a school of fish. Her point: defense systems intercepted incoming fire while her main guns targeted command ships. Instead of trying to destroy every enemy vessel, she focused on disrupting their coordination. "Sir," called Lieutenant Torres from the communication station, "we're receiving surrender signals from 17 Confederation vessels. They're requesting safe passage out of the combat zone." Elena nodded. "Granted. We're not here to slaughter anyone. We're here to prove a point." The point was being proven across the entire battlefield. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and fought with tactics that the Confederation couldn't counter. More importantly, they were fighting for something they believed in, while many Confederation crews were beginning to question why they were there at all. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Confederation fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind over 300 disabled vessels and requesting emergency assistance for their wounded. The human fleet had lost 2 ships and suffered minor damage to several others, but the real victory wasn't military, it was political. The battle had been broadcast live to every world in the galaxy through human communication networks. For the first time in 50,000 years, species across the galaxy watched a Confederation fleet defeated in open combat. Admiral Sek's last transmission before jumping to hyperspace was heard by millions. "Command, this is Admiral Sek. Request, immediate reinforcement. The humans. The humans are not what we thought they were." Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiant as her crew cheered around her. She activated the ship's long-range communications array and broadcast a message that would reach every corner of the galaxy. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Free Systems Alliance to all species watching today. We did not seek this fight, but we will not back down from it. The Galactic Confederation has built its power on the assumption that might makes right. Today, we proved that right makes might." She paused, looking out at the stars through the bridge. Viewports. "To every species that has ever been told you're too young, too weak, or too primitive to govern yourselves, you're not. To every world that has been forced to accept terms dictated by others, you have alternatives. And to every being that dreams of freedom, that dream is not naive. It's possible." The broadcast reached Earth 12 hours later. President Chen watched the recording in the Oval Office, surrounded by military and civilian advisors. When it ended, the room was silent. "Ma'am," said General Harrison, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, "we're receiving communication requests from over 200 species. They want to join the Alliance." President Chen nodded slowly. "And the Confederation? Their council has formally requested immediate negotiations. No conditions, no demands. They're asking for talks as equals." The president smiled. "Then we've accomplished what we set out to do. But Elena was right. This is just the beginning. 3. Days later, Elena Rodriguez received a priority communication while the Defiant was escorting another refugee convoy. The transmission came from Concordia Station, and the voice belonged to the crystalline being that had once condemned humanity. Captain Rodriguez, this is Council Leader Nix of the Galactic Confederation. We formally request negotiations between our governments. Elena's response was broadcast across the galaxy. Council Leader Nix, the Free Systems Alliance will negotiate with equals. When you're ready to meet us as one sovereign power to another, we'll be here. Until then, we have a universe to explore with our friends. The Alliance Conference Center in the Neutral Zone was bustling with activity as representatives from over 400 species gathered for the largest diplomatic assembly in galactic history. The Confederation had sent a delegation, but they were no longer setting the agenda. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the Alliance's first Director General, stood before the assembly. Behind her was a flag showing not the symbol of any single species, but a simple image of stars connected by lines, representing the bonds of voluntary cooperation between free worlds. Fellow beings, she began, we gather here not as subjects and rulers, but as partners in building something new. For too long, this galaxy has been divided between those who command and those who obey. Today, we begin a different path, Ayao gestured to the assembled delegates. The Free Systems Alliance operates on three simple principles: voluntary membership, equal representation, and mutual benefit. No species is forced to join, no species is forced to stay, and no species is considered more important than any other. The Confederation delegation sat in uncomfortable silence as species after species stood to announce their intention to join the Alliance. The Rigelians, the Proxima Collective, the Deneb Republic, and dozens of others that had never been given a voice in galactic affairs. But the most surprising moment came when Ambassador Lith of the Rigelians made an unexpected announcement. The Rigelian Republic moves that membership in the Free Systems Alliance be offered to any Confederation species that wishes to join, including the founding members. The chamber buzzed with excitement. Elena looked at the Confederation delegation and saw something she had never expected to see in the crystalline being's light patterns. Hope. The motion is seconded, Elena announced. All species, regardless of age or history, are welcome in an alliance of equals. 6 months later, the Galactic Confederation formally dissolved itself. Most of its member species joined the Free Systems Alliance, including several of the ancient founding races who had grown tired of the burden of ruling others.